Hey guys, this is Undercover Dudes, and welcome to the game called World War III. Developed by the Farm 51 and published by My.Games, World War III is a tactical online first-person shooter focusing on large-scale PvP battles, going head-to-head with Battlefield 2042. Despite being a game that initially released in 2018, World War III is staging a huge comeback in 2022, and today we're going to work out why. World War III is a game with a very rocky history. Released back in 2018, it was met with heavily negative reviews from critics and players alike. Server issues, terrible audio, huge performance issues to the point it was unplayable. Simply, it was just not worth playing World War III, and there were many better games out there. World War III was then pulled from the market, but fast forward 3 years later to 2021 and it was back in closed beta. And despite all that development time, it was still a bit underwhelming, but the critics had hope as it had the core structure of a solid first-person shooter. Fast forward again to March 2022 and World War III has been receiving tons of hype from YouTubers in the tactical FPS scene. Initially I thought it was just from this game going free to play, along with the huge disappointment of Battlefield 2042 and people just wanting a new Battlefield-like game to play. But after some playtime, I think I know the reasons why people are loving World War III so much, so let's get into it. Gameplay is the core element of any title, and World War III very much delivers on what it sets out to do. Now, with people saying it's Battlefield this and Battlefield that, I think World War III mechanically is more like Rainbow Six Siege in regards to its movement mechanics and leaning, but also more like hardcore shooters with the super fast time to kill. This is in no way bad. The guns feel fantastic, and adding in the great movement, it turns out to be a pretty good combination. However, if you are tempted to sprint everywhere, you need to hold back because of the time to kill. Bit by bit, I've learnt to scan rooms in a more tactical manner because if I just sprint in, more than likely I'm gonna die. It takes a while to get out of your sprint and you're just gonna get obliterated by a very fast time to kill. It's just been fun running around a map and shooting enemies with this more hardcore gameplay, but in a much less hardcore setting given it's not intense bomb defusal or battle royale or raiding like in Tarkov, but also you've got that hardcore-ish nature with a fast time to kill, but it's not as drastic as Insurgency and Squad. It's kind of a happy medium and it works really well for what this game is trying to do. Before moving on further, I just want to say that I think I have a unique perspective with this game in that I haven't started playing World War III until this month, so I don't really have the before and after regarding what were the game's biggest issues, that being the huge amounts of lag, game balance and terrible audio. These issues have thankfully all been resolved, but I don't want to focus on them for this video because the developers fixing something that shouldn't have been broken in the first place is not inherently a reason to play this game. It might be a reason for old players to come back, but for me and many new players, we want to see exactly why this game is worth sinking our time into. So with that said, let's go and talk about those reasons. So big tick with the gameplay, but let's talk about maps and modes. World War III's modes features up to 40 players, with Tactical Ops being your classic conquest-like mode with 20 players per team and Team Deathmatch being 10 vs 10. The most obvious thing is the rather low team sizes, but this works well as it's much easier to get into full matches, which is great for a game with a healthy but not huge player base. The obvious downside though is a lack of scale. You're not going to get those all-out wars with heaps and heaps of players, and this is somewhat obvious in the Tactical Ops mode as the big maps look nice but feel kind of empty if there isn't the full 40 players on the battlefield. However, in Team Deathmatch with the smaller cut down maps, it feels much more normal. It feels like a pretty decent, a high quality respawn shooter. A downside that can be seen is the lack of modes, as there is only 2 currently available and this lack of content will be a recurring point throughout the video. Yes, this is quote unquote an early access game in closed beta, but it's previously been out for quite a while and more should be expected by this point. Map-wise though, I really like what World War III is doing. Obviously they're made for both vehicles and infantry, but very clear infantry parts which I love because I'm not so much of a vehicle guy. So looping back, while the raw gameplay is not traditional Battlefield, this combined with the very Battlefield-like maps means it gives off that vibe, and I can definitely see why people are gravitating over to it and calling it the Battlefield killer or whatever. It feels like a breath of fresh air in that sense. The graphics in World War III are pretty damn good. Everything has a high level of detail that we're accustomed to see in modern FPS games. Naturally, it isn't as good as Warzone and the such, but it's close enough that the differences don't really matter. Now, to be fair, I personally don't even care about graphics that much. I care about performance and gameplay, and World War III delivers on both points. As soon as I started playing, the first thing I did was cap my FPS at 150 because I got a 144Hz monitor, and then I instinctually turned down all the settings to medium or high, and I got that very stable 150 FPS, which is awesome. I then thought, hey, let's go and crank everything to ultra and see what it can do, and I was still getting a very solid 100 FPS on a 1440p monitor while recording, and overall that is very impressive. In general, World War III is a very optimized game. I didn't believe it at first, but I saw some YouTube videos people were saying it was, and hopping in game, I can go and firmly say that it really does go and get you high FPS. And I don't get these numbers from other not as nice looking FPS titles, so very impressive indeed. Now, to be fair, this is easy to see in regards to the minimum system specifications. All that is required is a 2nd gen i5 processor, 8GB of RAM, and a GeForce GTX 770. Now yes, the memory requirement is a tad high, but overall these requirements are quite a bit lower than other tactical shooters out there. One downfall, for Australian players at least, is the lack of an oceanic server. I don't even know if there's an Asian server, but every time I hop in game I get red or yellow bars, meaning I'm connecting to American or European servers. Now the positive is that gameplay wise, it's actually not too bad. There are no super obvious lag effects, which is really nice, and the game is still very playable. It's only noticeable here and there when players skip ahead a little, or maybe a bullet feels like it just didn't register. Naturally, more servers would be fantastic, but I do understand this game doesn't have the biggest player base of all time, so having quick matchmaking and just getting me into a game is really quite good, and even if I'm connecting to NA servers, it's fine because the gameplay repercussions are very low. A core element to World War III, and an element that really sets itself apart from other FPS games, is the weapon customization. Many games restrict the player's creativity in the customization department, limiting weapon attachments to what is quote-unquote realistic. In World War III though, you can just put on whatever you want. Sniper scopes, double scopes, grips, different magazines. It's pretty cool and opens up a lot of doors to really fine-tune your weapon. Backing up to the class level though, when you unlock each class, it comes with a pretty much fully kitted out weapon. For example, the assault class has an assault rifle with a scope, foregrip, muzzle brake, and so on. The anti-tank class has a suppressed SMG with a laser sight, so on and so on. It's awesome having a solid loadout and means you're not at an immediate disadvantage when trying out a new class. There's also a secondary weapon, a primary gadget like a med pack, a secondary gadget like a grenade, along with armor plating. The armor plating is cool since if you want to go with stuff that has more protection, that incurs a big weight penalty, but if you just run very light Kevlar, you can run around the map very quickly. Another result of this weight system is you can run two traditionally primary weapons like an SMG and an LMG on the same class, but naturally you have to run the lowest level armor to compensate since there is a limit to the weight. This freedom is really great, and working around a weight system rather than a point system for each class works quite well. Now one thing that would be really nice is a super quick tutorial just to show off the game's features. When you hop in game, there's a gameplay tips section on the left hand side, and that shows you how to actually play and press all the buttons, but an actual tutorial going and stepping you through would be really cool for people that are new to the FPS genre, or just to get accustomed to the leaning, sliding, the overall game mechanics and so on. Next up, let's talk about the free-to-play relaunch, because this is a stroke of genius. Everyone knows that 2042 has been an incredible failure and people want a new Battlefield-like title. Then there was rumours EA was going to release the Portal mode as free to play, and that seemingly isn't going to happen, so definitely it's just a really big mess, and it seems like World War III is taking advantage of it. So World War III, off the back of a huge development push that has significantly improved the game, announces it's going free to play. So it's two birds in one stone, a game people want and it's becoming free. It just makes sense for Battlefield fans to transition over to World War III from 2042, so it's great marketing from the World War III team. But it's not only good marketing, as the game itself is really solid. The gameplay loop is sick, the maps are detailed and fun, the modes are straightforward but functional, the customization has tons of depth. Overall, World War III has a lot going for it. It's kinda crazy now that in 2022 the script is being flipped. Indie developers are producing better titles than AAA studios, and hey, I'm here for it. Now, while the flaws in this game are visible, that being a lack of content, somewhat empty maps, overpowered vehicles, and a rather large grind to unlock weapons, over time these should be ironed out, especially in regards to the content. Now, regarding the actual free-to-play launch, currently World War 3 is still in closed beta, so you'll have to pay to get in right now, but the developers have said it will become a free-to-play open beta title very soon. Now, this was originally planned for March 2022, however just recently the developers made the difficult decision to push the open beta back. In regards to when it'll actually drop, no updated dates have been released, so subscribe to keep up to date.